My girlfriend told me. He's moving in. There's no discussion. I answered. Neither is my departure. Then I loaded my life into a truck, took my name off the lease, and stepped aside as her ex, the landlord, and real life taught her exactly what non-negotiable actually looks like. I'm Daniel, 30M. I work as a logistics coordinator for a regional distribution company. It's steady, predictable work. I like structure. I pay my bills on time. I track my expenses, and I don't enjoy chaos bleeding into my living space. My girlfriend, Tara, 27F, works in event marketing. We've been together a little over 2 years and living together for the last 14 months in a downtown apartment. Both our names are on the lease. Rent isn't cheap, but we split everything 50-50. At least that was the agreement. Tara has a strong personality. That's the polite version. She's confident, loud, and very used to getting her way. Early on, I thought it was just ambition. Over time, I realized it was more about control. Her ex, Ryan, has always hovered in the background. They dated for 3 years before me. According to her, he was emotionally stunted and couldn't handle her. But his name came up a lot, mostly framed as proof of how much she'd grown since then. About a month ago, she started mentioning that Ryan was having a rough time. Apparently, he and his roommate had a falling out. Then it became his roommate kicked him out. Then it became he was temporarily staying on a friend's couch. I didn't think much of it. Not my problem. Last Tuesday night, I came home from work and she was sitting at the kitchen counter with her laptop open and that expression she gets when she's already decided something. We need to talk, she said. I thought maybe job change. Maybe money. Something normal. Instead she goes, Ryan's moving in. There's no discussion. It's temporary, so don't start. I actually laughed at first because I thought she was joking. She wasn't. She said he'd take the spare room. Said it would only be for a couple weeks. Said I should be mature enough to understand that helping someone in crisis is what decent people do. I asked when this was decided. She said earlier that day. I asked why I wasn't consulted. She rolled her eyes and said, because you'd make it dramatic. That's when I realized this wasn't a conversation. It was a declaration. And I don't live in places where I don't get a say. I told her calmly, if he's moving in and there's no discussion, then neither is my departure. She smirked like I was bluffing. I wasn't. I didn't throw anything. I didn't insult her. I didn't even raise my voice. I just asked one more question. When is he moving in? She shrugged and said Friday. It was Tuesday. She'd already told him yes. Apparently she'd also told him that I'd understand, because I'm reasonable. That word again. Reasonable. Translation, compliant. I asked if she'd at least told him the lease had both our names on it. She waved that off. It's fine. The landlord loves me. Don't make it complicated. That was the moment I realized this wasn't about helping someone. This was about control. She had decided something about our shared living space and informed me after the fact. So I said okay. She blinked. I said if he's moving in Friday, I'll be out by Thursday night. She rolled her eyes and laughed. You're being dramatic. No, I said. I'm being consistent. You said there's no discussion. I agree. She didn't think I meant it. She went back to her laptop like the matter was settled. The next morning I called the leasing office. I asked what the process was for removing myself from a joint lease. Turns out it required both parties to sign a release and for the remaining tenant to qualify solo or with a new co-signer. Interesting. I didn't tell Tara that yet. Instead, I rented a small moving truck for Thursday evening. Non-refundable. I also called a buddy of mine who has a spare bedroom. Asked if I could crash for a few weeks. He said yes without hesitation. By Wednesday night, I'd boxed up most of my stuff from the spare room. Funny how quickly that room stopped feeling neutral. She noticed the boxes and asked what I was doing. I told her exactly what I said I would. She scoffed. You're really leaving over this? No. I'm leaving because you told me I don't get a say in where I live. She tried flipping it. So you're punishing me for helping someone. I told her if she wants to help her ex, that's her choice. But I'm not sharing an apartment with him. She snapped and said I was insecure. Maybe. But I'm not homeless and insecure at the same time. By Thursday afternoon, she was annoyed more than upset. She still believed I'd calmed down. Then at 6 p.m. the truck pulled up outside. And that's when she realized I wasn't negotiating. The truck pulling up changed the tone immediately. Tara was standing by the window when she saw it. Her expression shifted from irritated to confused. You actually rented a truck? Yes. For what? To move my life. She followed me downstairs, still acting like this was some kind of performance art. The driver handed me the keys, I signed, and started loading boxes. At that point she switched tactics. Daniel, stop. This is insane. He's just staying in the spare room. I didn't respond right away. I carried my desk chair down the stairs instead. That's when she finally said what she really meant. You're embarrassing me. That was interesting. Not you're hurting me. Not I don't want you to go. Embarrassing. Because apparently she'd already told Ryan I was fine with it. Probably framed me as supportive and evolved. While I was loading the truck, she tried calling Ryan. I could hear her pacing inside, explaining something in a hushed but angry voice. By the third trip down, she came outside. He doesn't have anywhere else to go. You're making this harder than it needs to be. I told her calmly that I wasn't stopping her from helping him. I was just removing myself from a situation I didn't agree to. She crossed her arms and said, "You're overreacting. It's just temporary. Temporary doesn't mean optional for me." Here's where it got interesting. I reminded her that both our names are on the lease. If Ryan was moving in, that would technically require landlord approval. Subleasing without consent violates the agreement. She froze for half a second. He won't care, she said quickly. Maybe, maybe not. I didn't threaten anything. I just stated facts. By 9 p.m., my half of the apartment was empty. Couch, TV, bed frame, kitchen table. All mine. All gone. The place looked different immediately. Smaller. She stood in the middle of the living room and said, "So what? You're just abandoning me?" "No," I said. "I'm stepping aside like you asked." She didn't like that phrasing. As I drove away, she sent one text. "You'll regret this." I didn't answer. Because here's the thing she didn't factor in. Removing my name from the lease wasn't optional for her. It required her cooperation. And Friday was less than 24 hours away. Ryan was still planning to move in, but the landlord hadn't been told anything yet. And I wasn't obligated to stay silent. Friday morning, I woke up on my friend's couch to 12 missed calls. All from Tara. I didn't listen to the voicemails. Instead, I called the leasing office. I explained that I was vacating the unit and wanted to formally begin the process of removing myself from the lease. I also asked, hypothetically, what happens if an additional occupant moves in without written approval? The property manager didn't even hesitate. That's a violation. Immediate notice. Interesting. I thanked her and hung up. About 10 minutes later, Tara finally texted instead of calling. "Ryan's here. We need to talk about the lease." I didn't respond. Another text. "The landlord says we both have to sign something." Still didn't respond. Then came the shift. "Why would you call them without telling me?" So she knew. I had done exactly what I said I would. I stepped aside, but I didn't leave loose ends tied to my name. That afternoon, I sent one clean message. "I'm removing myself from the lease. I won't be financially responsible for a third occupant I didn't agree to. I'll sign the release once you qualify solo or add him legally." Then I blocked her. Phone, social media, everything. Not out of anger. Out of clarity. If she wanted non-negotiable decisions, she could have them without commentary. An hour later, Ryan tried to call from an unknown number. Blocked. Another number. Blocked. I wasn't doing a three-way debate about an apartment I no longer lived in. By Saturday morning, mutual friends were texting me. Apparently Ryan didn't qualify on his own. His credit wasn't great. And Tara, on her income alone, didn't meet the building's ratio requirement without a co-signer, which meant the landlord had given them two options: submit updated paperwork properly, or face lease termination. And since I'd already initiated removal, my exit was in motion. Tara left a long message with a mutual friend asking him to pass it along. She said I was sabotaging her, that I was being petty, that real partners don't run at the first sign of discomfort. I had him reply with exactly one sentence: real partners don't move their ex in without discussion. After that, I heard nothing directly, but I did hear something interesting. Ryan wasn't thrilled about the paperwork. Apparently, he thought he was just crashing for a bit. Turns out, non-negotiable feels different when the lease agreement has signatures on it. And for the first time since Tuesday, Tara wasn't the one controlling the situation. She was reacting, without me in the room. By Monday, the pressure shifted entirely onto Tara. I wasn't hearing from her directly because she was blocked everywhere, but mutual friends were providing unintentional updates. Ryan had officially moved in Friday night. Mattress on the spare room floor. 2 duffel bags. Big energy about fresh starts. Apparently, he walked in expecting calm. Instead, he walked into a leasing compliance email. The landlord had sent formal notice requesting updated occupant documentation within 72 hours. Failure to comply would trigger a lease review. That's corporate speak for you're on thin ice. Tara tried spinning it at first. Told Ryan I'd overreacted and made things messy on purpose. Said it was just paperwork. But paperwork has numbers attached. And numbers don't care about tone. She needed either to qualify solo or have Ryan added legally. That required his credit check, income verification, and application fee. Ryan didn't love that part. From what I heard, he thought he was staying a few weeks, not signing into a year-long financial obligation, which means they had their first real argument within 48 hours of cohabitation. Funny how crisis bonding energy fades when leasing terms appear. Midweek, I got an email from the property manager directly, not from Tara. It stated that Tara had submitted documents to remove me from the lease and retain the unit with an additional applicant pending approval. Translation: she needed me fully gone to stabilize her side. I signed the release digitally that same day. Clean. Final. No commentary. That apparently shocked her more than anything. She'd expected me to stall, to leverage, to negotiate. Instead, I stepped aside exactly as promised. But here's the part she didn't calculate. Once I was off the lease, the security deposit conversation shifted. Half of it was legally mine, and the landlord doesn't redistribute deposits automatically when tenants change midterm, meaning Tara now had to come up with my portion to keep the unit intact. Ryan, according to a friend, did not volunteer. By Thursday night, I heard they'd had a full-blown argument about money. Non-negotiable suddenly required negotiation. Meanwhile, I'd moved my things into a small studio across town. Signed a 6-month lease. Quiet building. No drama. Block numbers stayed blocked. But word travels. Apparently Tara told people I ran. Which is interesting, because I didn't run. I just refused to share space with her ex. And now she was learning that declarations don't override contracts. Real life signs paperwork. And paperwork doesn't smirk. By the second week, the tone shifted from confident to strained. I didn't hear it directly. I heard it through the grapevine. Apparently the landlord approved Ryan conditionally. His credit wasn't great, but Tara pushed it through by agreeing to a higher security deposit and signing a stricter addendum about timely rent, which meant two things. 1, she had to cover my half of the deposit immediately. 2, if rent was late even once, the landlord could move to terminate. That's a lot of pressure for a temporary arrangement. The first rent cycle hit faster than expected. Tara had always been fine splitting rent with me. Predictable income. Automatic transfers. Clean math. Ryan's contribution? Less predictable. From what I heard, he was between contracts. Freelance design work. A few invoices pending. That kind of explanation. Tara started venting to mutual friends about how stressed she was. Said I'd left her in a difficult position. Said I could have at least given her more time. More time for what? To let her ex move in gradually? Meanwhile, I was settling into my studio. It wasn't flashy. It was mine. Quiet mornings. No tension in the kitchen. No wondering who's coming through the door. About 3 weeks in, I got an unexpected call. Not from her. From the landlord. Professional tone. Simple question. Have you fully vacated the premises and removed all belongings? Yes. Good. We've had noise complaints and wanted to confirm you're no longer an occupant. Noise complaints. Interesting. Apparently Ryan had friends over. Late nights. Music. Balcony smoking. The building had always been strict about that. Tara used to complain when upstairs neighbors made noise past 10. Now she was the one getting written warnings. The part that really shifted things? Rent was 2 days late that month. 2 days. Under the new addendum. That triggered a formal notice. Tara, according to a friend, was furious. Said the landlord was being unfair. Said I'd set her up for failure. I hadn't done anything. I removed myself from a situation I didn't consent to. Real life did the rest. By the end of the month, I heard Ryan was already talking about needing space. Said the pressure felt heavy. Said living together was exposing compatibility issues. Compatibility issues. They'd been roommates for 4 weeks. Apparently non-negotiable decisions feel empowering until the consequences arrive. And the consequences had her signature on them. Not mine. By month 2, the situation stopped being dramatic and started being predictable. Tara's social media shifted first. Less thriving energy. More vague quotes about resilience. A couple posts about how growth requires uncomfortable transitions. Translation: this isn't going the way I imagined. From what mutual friends told me, Ryan's between contracts phase lasted longer than expected. The freelance invoices didn't clear as quickly as promised. Tara ended up fronting most of the rent that second month. That's when the arguments got specific. Money exposes dynamics fast. She'd framed him as someone she was rescuing. That narrative works when it's short-term and romantic. It feels empowering. It feels less empowering when utilities are due. Apparently, she started pushing him to contribute more structure. Budget talks, job talks, timeline talks. He didn't like that. He'd come in thinking temporary refuge, not joint financial accountability under a stricter lease agreement. And then the landlord did something subtle but effective. After the second late rent notice, they required automatic payment enrollment under Tara's account. No more manual transfers. No more, I'll send it tomorrow. Just direct withdrawal. Ryan, from what I heard, took that personally. Said it felt like he was being treated like a liability. Which, technically, he was. The noise complaints didn't stop either. A warning letter was posted on their door one Friday afternoon. Building policy is strict. 3 violations can trigger lease termination. Funny how, there's no discussion, sounds powerful until you're the one getting official notices taped to your door. Meanwhile, I was stable. My studio lease was quiet. Rent paid early. No drama. No emergency moves. No shared kitchens with unresolved history. One evening, about 9 weeks after I left, I ran into Tara downtown. Pure coincidence. She looked tired. Not messy, just stretched thin. She tried to keep it light. So, are you happy now? That question told me everything. Not are you doing okay? Not I miss you. Happy now. Like this had been some strategic revenge. I told her calmly I wasn't trying to win anything. I just refused to live in a situation I didn't agree to. She said Ryan and I are working through things. Interesting phrasing. Working through. As if this was still a project. I didn't ask for details. I didn't need them. Because the lesson wasn't about Ryan. It was about what happens when someone says there's no discussion in a shared space. Real life responds with its own non-negotiables. And they come with due dates. Not opinions. About 3 months after I moved out, the situation finally tipped. Not dramatically. Not explosively. Just predictably. The third rent cycle under the stricter addendum hit. And this time, it wasn't just 2 days late. It was 5. Under their agreement, 5 days triggered a formal lease violation review. From what I heard, the landlord scheduled a meeting. Not a friendly check-in. A compliance meeting. Tara apparently went in alone because Ryan had a client call. That detail told me everything. The landlord laid out the numbers. 2 prior late payments. Ongoing noise complaints. Multiple warnings documented. They gave her 2 options. Bring the account current immediately and commit to 0 further violations. Or begin voluntary termination to avoid a formal eviction process. Voluntary termination sounds polite. It's not. It means you leave before you're forced out. Ryan, according to a friend who still talked to both of them, did not handle this well. He blamed her for overreacting by adding him legally instead of letting him stay quietly. She blamed him for not stepping up financially. They were both technically right and technically wrong. That's what happens when 2 people bond over rebellion instead of responsibility. By the end of that week, I heard they'd broken up. Again. Apparently, he said the living situation felt suffocating. That she was becoming controlling. That he didn't sign up for pressure. She reportedly told him he should be grateful she helped him when no one else would. Gratitude doesn't pay rent. The final piece came quietly. A mutual friend mentioned Tara was moving out. Voluntary termination signed. Deposit partially forfeited due to violations. Ryan went back to couch surfing. The apartment she declared non-negotiable? Gone. I didn't celebrate. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt confirmed. When someone makes unilateral decisions in a shared life, they assume control equals stability. It doesn't. Control without agreement just accelerates consequences. And consequences don't care who started the argument. They just collect signatures. And hers were on everything. About a month after, I met someone. Not intentionally. Not as a rebound mission. Just through normal life. Her name's Maya. 28. She works in healthcare administration. We met because she moved into the unit across the hall from my studio. The building's quiet. Mostly professionals who mind their business. The first conversation was about a misdelivered package. The second was about coffee. What stood out immediately wasn't chemistry. It was tone. When we talked, nothing felt like a power play. No performative confidence. No testing boundaries to see what I'd tolerate. Just normal adult conversation. About 3 weeks into casually seeing each other, she asked a simple question. So what happened in your last relationship? I didn't dramatize it. I just said my ex made a major living decision without discussion, so I removed myself. Maya paused and said, that makes sense. No eye roll. No implication that I was insecure. No trying to analyze me into being the villain. That reaction alone felt foreign. One night we were cooking at her place, and her ex came up naturally in conversation. She mentioned he had reached out recently about grabbing coffee. You know what she said? I told him no. It didn't feel respectful to where I am now. Just matter of fact. No speech about being evolved enough to handle complex emotions. No framing it as noble maturity. Just boundaries. I didn't realize how tense I'd been about shared space until I wasn't. One evening, she asked if I'd ever consider moving somewhere bigger once my 6-month lease ends. Notice the phrasing. Asked, not declared. And when I said maybe, but we'd talk about it properly if that time came, she nodded and said, of course. No smirk. No non-negotiable. Meanwhile, I heard through mutual circles that Tara was staying with a friend temporarily. Ryan was out of the picture again. The apartment was back on the market. Non-negotiable had turned into non-renewable. I don't hate her. I don't regret leaving. If anything, I regret almost staying to prove something. Because here's the quiet truth. The moment someone tells you there's no discussion in a shared life, the discussion is already over. You just have to decide if you're staying for it. I didn't. And now, for the first time in a while, my living situation doesn't come with surprise roommates. Just doors that open when both people agree to turn the handle. 6 months after I loaded my life into that truck, everything had settled. Maya and I didn't rush anything. No dramatic declarations. No sudden merging of lives. Just consistent weekends, shared groceries, quiet conversations about work and future plans. When my studio lease came up for renewal, she asked again, "What are you thinking?" That's it. No assumption. No pressure. Just a question. We sat at her kitchen table and actually discussed it. Budget. Location. Commute. Privacy. Expectations. It took 45 minutes. No one rolled their eyes. No one declared anything non-negotiable. We decided to sign a new place together. Bigger. Neutral ground. Both names on the lease. Clear terms about finances. Simple adult stuff. Meanwhile, Tara's situation wrapped itself up exactly how these things usually do. She moved twice in 3 months. First to a friend's spare bedroom, then to a smaller apartment further out of downtown. I heard Ryan resurfaced briefly, then disappeared again once money and responsibility entered the conversation. The landlord relisted the original unit within weeks of her termination. New tenants. Clean slate. One afternoon, I got a message request on LinkedIn. Not from her directly. Just a short note. I miscalculated. I thought you'd stay. That was it. No apology. No ownership of the unilateral decision. Just acknowledgement that she assumed I wouldn't leave. I didn't respond. Because that was always the core of it. She didn't think I'd leave. She thought I'd argue, adjust, tolerate, negotiate. She thought non-negotiable only flowed one direction. But the moment she said there's no discussion, she removed the only thing that makes cohabitation work. Agreement. I didn't fight her decision. I matched it. She said he's moving in. I said neither is my departure. And that was that. Non-negotiable isn't loud. It isn't dramatic. It's quiet. It's paperwork signed without hesitation. It's keys returned without a speech. It's a truck loaded while someone watches from the window thinking you're bluffing. I wasn't bluffing. And the funny part? The only thing that truly wasn't negotiable in the end was reality. Rent gets due. Leases get enforced. People either qualify or they don't. And when someone tells you there's no discussion, sometimes the only response is to remove yourself from the room entirely. Turns out, that's a decision real life respects.